Okay, everybody, welcome to this video. So today we'll be discussing what a blockchain is. Okay, in our previous videos we've seen how HTTPS works, how IPFS works. Now it's time to move on to the next topic of the basics, which is a blockchain. Now, to understand blockchain, let's start with what a database is. So most of you know what a database is, right? If you don't know what a database is, imagine an Excel file, okay, an Excel sheet. So suppose, let's assume you have an Excel sheet on your computer, okay. It is not being shared with anybody else, but you have it on your own system. Now say you share it with your friend, and then you say you share it with a few more friends, and then say around 10 people share the same Excel sheet, right? Now you all have the exact same copy of an Excel sheet, correct? Now if you change something in your Excel sheet, it does not reflect in all of their sheets, right? So that is the basic property of database. That is, if the same database, if you all share the database, then yes, it changes. But since everybody has an independent copy of the same database, the change in one sheet does not the change in one Excel file does not reflect in the other Excel files, correct? Now, the problem with using a database for transactions is that there is no synchrony, correct? If I make a change on my system, if I say that somebody has made a transaction, then I have to manually send out a notification to all of my peers saying that, all of the peers who hold the exact Excel file, and I need to say that, some guys transferred this much amount of money to some other guy. So you give the wallet addresses. Okay, let's not get into wallet addresses. You give the bank account details and you say this was the amount, and you say that it was from this bank to this bank, and every other detail that is required, and you have to send out manually. Okay. Now the problem with this is there is another problem. First problem that I already mentioned is that you have to manually change it. The second problem is that there can be some fraud. You never know, because if 10 people are maintaining the ledger of transactions, then if one person can manipulate it, then it becomes a fraud, correct? If the other 10 people cannot verify it, if I call up somebody and say that, hey, some guy sent this much amount of cash, and please change it in your ledger as well, and that is not credible. It is just coming from one source, and it can be false, and the person may be trying to manipulate it, and all of the problems arise. And also, even if it is perfectly credible, and if everything is fair, even if somebody else, one of my peers, has made a mistake in updating their file, then that again arises, gives rise to a lot of other problems. That could be a chain effect. So there's a lot of issues with using normal databases for global transactions, since there is problem with fraud, and there could be problems with synchronization of the different um, syncing of the different databases and whatnot. So that is why we don't use a database, or a simple sheet to store all these transactions. Now, how is blockchain different? Now, a blockchain is similar to, say, you start a blockchain, all right? You launch a blockchain. Now, you set up, say, 10 nodes. You and your friends set up 10 nodes, and you start running a blockchain, okay? Now, the thing with blockchain is it starts off the same. It starts off like, you have the same Excel file. So, similarly, you have the same exact blockchain. You have the same exact copy of the same blockchain. Now, if one person tries to change it, he can't just change it. He or she cannot change it and say that, hey guys, I made this change, so please update your ledger. That's not how it works. How it works is I say that, hey, this transaction is trying to process, so please approve it. Only after everybody is approved, and only after everybody sees that, okay, this transaction is a fair transaction, only then is it going to be added to the ledger. Okay, so that is called consensus. We'll come to consensus in a bit. So that is how blockchain is different. Everybody is going to have the same copy of the chain. The chain is basically a ledger. Imagine it like a file. It is just a data structure, and everybody is going to have the same exact copy. But the thing is, there is verification, and there is consensus, and everybody has to agree on it. Only then will a change be incorporated into the chain, right? Now, the next thing is the previous and next hash. What am I referring to here? What it is that
ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ.
Okay, so when we say previous and next hash, this is what I'm referring to. When you make a change in a database, you manually change it, correct? Or you connect it to an oracle and the oracle makes a change, or you feed a data source. That is basically what an oracle is. You feed a data source and the it is automated, the changes are automated and whatnot. Now changes in a blockchain are not so different, and this is something that makes it very secure as well. Now, say there is a block. Say the first ever blockchain, the first ever entry into a blockchain ledger is called the Genesis block, the first block. Now, the Genesis block has a specific hash. I explained the concept of hashes in the previous video, so check it out if you're not clear about that. So the first block has a hash, correct? Now, if you have to add a second block to the same chain, then uh, the hash. Sorry. Okay.
ಏನಂತೆ?
Okay, so when I say previous hash and the next hash, what I mean is this. In a database, when you make a change, right, you can either make the change manually or you can feed an oracle to it. You can feed it a data source, and the data source, based on some random automation that you set up, is going to make a change, correct? Now, with blockchain, what happens is that the blockchain structure is like this. It has the first block. So, a blockchain starts with the first block. The first block is called the Genesis block. Now, the Genesis block has a specific hash of its own, correct? Now, that is going to be there. And also, if you guys don't know what a hash is and how this hash function actually works, then go to one of my previous videos. I think it's the IPFS video. I've explained the hash function, I think, pretty well. So, you can get a better understanding if you wish to. So, coming back to this topic, so the Genesis block has a hash of its own, correct? Now, when the second block needs to be added to the blockchain, as in when you want to make a change to the blockchain, it has to be made through a new block because the old block cannot be removed. That is how it is. It is the data structure property is like that. It is immutable. So the only thing you can do is that you can add a new block and you can make the change inside the new block. Okay. So the new block, when you add the new block, the only way you can add a new block is if it also contains the previous hash, that is the hash of the Genesis block, and also a hash of its own. All right. Now, say you somehow figure out the hash of the old the Genesis block, and then you also you figure out the hash of the Genesis block, and then you add this new block, and also the new block has its own hash. So basically, now what we have is a Genesis block with the hash, and then to that is attached a new block which contains the Genesis block hash and also its own hash with the data. All right. Now, if you need to add another block, the same process repeats. Now, the second block, the block after the Genesis block, that hash has to match the hash on the third block, and also the third block has to have a hash on its own. All right. So, what you have to keep in mind is with each new block, there needs to be a matching of the hashes. So, if you want to add a new block, the hash should match with the previous block, and also it should have its own hash, so that the hash of the new block ensures that the next block that is added is also verified, and it is compatible with the hash of its own. So that is how it works. The data structure is like that. So each block has its own hash and whatnot. Now, also in addition to the hashes, the blocks actually contain data, obviously, because when you make a change, that data inside the block it is reflected inside the data inside the block that you're adding, and that is how the state of a blockchain changes. That is called, at any point of time, the overall data that is there inside a blockchain is called the state of the blockchain. Now, if you change the data and whatnot, the state changes. That is how it is. It's dynamic. So that is what a state. Now, why is this very important? And why does it make it so secure? Because if I can figure out a hash, I can easily make changes, right? If I can just figure out the hash of a previous block and then the hash of a new block, I can just insert a block in between, correct? But it does not work like that. How it works is, if, say you want to insert a hash between two random blocks, then what you'll have to do is you'll have to figure out the hash of the block behind it, all right, and you'll also have to figure out the hash in front of it. But the problem that arises, even if you figure out both the hashes And in fact, if it is very tough to figure out hashes, because a hash function is very complex, and a hash is an alphanumeric and it has a lot of characters, so you need a lot of computational power to figure out a hash, to work out a hash. That is why Bitcoin miners and Ethereum miners, you may have seen these huge mines. And if you're curious, you can go and see, look them up on Google. They have huge mines, they have huge buildings in which there are servers and hardware, so that they can just generate enough computational power to figure out hashes. That's how difficult it is to figure out a hash. So you need a lot of computational power. So even if you figure out both the hashes somehow, if a hacker figures out both the hashes somehow, it is still not going to be possible, because then the rest of the data changes. Say if I include a block after, if I want to introduce a new block, if I want to change, I'm a hacker and I want to change the state of a blockchain, um, and I want to introduce a block after block 8. So I want to change what block 9 looks like. Now, say I figure out what the previous block hash is, the hash of the eighth block, right? Even if I change that and I introduce this new block, then there is going to be a new hash that the actual block 9 has to match with, right? So there's an original block 9 which has already matched with the original block 8. Now I've created an artificial block 9 and it has its own hash. Now the original block 9's hash is not matching with the artificial block 9 hash, correct? Now that is going to give out an alert to every sort of an alert to all of the miners and all of the validators who are maintaining the blockchain, and they can immediately say that, you know what, this is wrong, this cannot happen, this is somebody trying to attack the system. And they can, I explained the concept of consensus. So in this case, when they receive that notification and they see that somebody is trying to change the state of the blockchain, they can immediately say that no, we do not approve of this, and so the hacker will not be able to hack the blockchain. So that is how it works, and it is entirely secure. All right, there may be a few cases where the blockchain itself is not very strong, or the code inside the blockchain, say they call them smart contracts, if anybody is aware of that. So when they are not strong, and there have been a few instances where blockchains have been hacked, but it is not very easy. It requires a lot of technical ability and it requires a lot of computational power to hack a blockchain, and it is almost impossible, nearly impossible to hack a blockchain. So that is what makes them so secure, and millions of people are using blockchain to deal with cryptocurrencies and whatnot. So that is what makes a blockchain very secure. The hashes, that is the basic thing. All right, and also you guys know that if you change a hash, then you change the data, then a hash is going to completely change in itself, correct? So that is one more thing, you can't change the data in itself inside a block, because if you change the data inside any block, then you are going to change the hash of that block, and then that is going to have a chain effect on the rest of the blocks. So there is going to be a complete mismatch of each of the block from there, and the system is going to pick it up, and the validators are going to say no, we're not going to allow this cannot happen. And that is, and you'll basically not be able to change the data because there's no consensus. So that is how consensus works. Now, what does a block actually look like? So let us go to Etherscan. Now, Etherscan is basically any block that is added to the Ethereum blockchain. You can see the latest blocks that have been added to the blockchain. See here, it says 22 seconds ago, 23 seconds ago. So this block, this new block, that this is how a block looks like. So this is a new block that has been added to the Ethereum blockchain. Here you can see the block height. So this is basically called a block height, this number right here. So what a block height is that is the block number of the blockchain. So here the block number is approximately 13 millionth block, right? So it is somewhere between 13 and 14 million. So that is the number of the block, and that is called the height of the block. And here this is the address of the miner. So every miner, I'll explain the concept of miners in the future, but if anybody is aware of what a miner is, who a miner is, then this is the wallet address of the block. And also you should know what a wallet is. So this is the wallet address of the miner who validated this transaction, and that is how. And also there is a reward system. A miner who validates the transaction first is going to be awarded with, rewarded with the native token of the blockchain. I'll explain all of these concepts in the future, but this is basically what a block looks like. And this is 96 transactions in 5 seconds, right? So a single block may not necessarily have only one transaction. That is very rare. A single block having a single transaction is very rare. See here, you can see 0 transactions. So these instances are very rare, but they do happen. But usually there are multiple transactions. Here there are 471 transactions, 333 transactions. So there can be multiple transactions, right, inside a block. And also here you can see the reward. On the side you can see here the reward was 3.1 ETH. Here the reward was 2.5 ETH. So the reward depends on the number of transactions and also how tough the system was, how tough was it to crack the hash. And I mean, when I say crack the hash, it means I explained how you add a new block, right? You have to figure out the hash of the previous block to be able to add a new block. So that it the reward is indicative of how difficult it was to add that particular block. Basically, how difficult it was to figure out the hash of the previous block. So, in order to incentivize my people who validate that, and they need huge computational power, and they spend a lot of investment, and there's a lot of upfront costs for this. They spend a lot on the electricity supply and a lot of money on the equipment and the operations and all that. So to incentivize them, they are rewarded with ether tokens, right? So that is how this is self-sustaining right now. It is not it is actually capitalistic, not crony capitalistic like the current banking institutions and all of these real estate giants. There is no fair disadvantage, there is no unfair advantage here. It is all fair, it's all transparent, and you can see what's going on behind the curtain. There's no curtain, in fact. All right, so we saw what a block looks like, right? Now coming to the explanation of the applications. So blockchain can be useful in supply chain, ownership verification, and storing of sealed records, and also in cryptocurrency transactions. So basically what supply chain all of this data comes from, all of these applications come from the immutability of blockchain, because once there's data inside a block you cannot change it, right? So you can actually check the authenticity of the product. Say you try to get a product from a specific place, and the blockchain contains data of where the product is actually from. So nobody can actually lie to your face saying that this is where the product is actually from. You can go back and check it. So that is important. So supply chain, there's a lot of applications there now. ITC is testing out a few blockchain applications to on their supply chain end. And also ownership verification. Since there's data immutability, there can be no fraud. There cannot be any unfair encroachment and whatnot, because the owner is actually there on the blockchain. Nobody can just come up to you and say, you know what, I want your land, I'll buy you out, or you just have to get lost from here. No, nobody can do that. And the ownership can be verified. Nobody can just lie about somebody. Nobody can just lie about them owning a specific item or specific land or something, because you can go to the blockchain and see that if they are the owner or not. So that is one advantage. And sealed records, see, in very rare cases of fraud, then records can be changed, like evidence tampering, and code records could be changed and whatnot. So if due to data immutability property of the blockchain, the sealed records can be stored there in digital form, so that there is no immutability of data, right? And also cryptocurrency. All after learning all of that, all of which I discussed in this video, you now sort of know that why it is used in crypto, because the transactions are secure, and there is always verifiability in the on the chain. And also there are a lot of applications as well. I'll be covering that in the subsequent videos. So there's a lot of scope, and hence it is used in cryptocurrencies. And you don't need an intermediary for this. People can just maintain a blockchain and they can just make things happen. It's just beautiful. You don't need a bank, you don't need any government authorities. If all you need are miners, or you can set up your own node for that. You can contribute to a network, and you can just make things happen. You can build things on top of blockchains. I'll explain that as well. But yeah, that is one application as well. So yes, that was it. That was what blockchain is. This has been a pretty long video. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, if you didn't understand anything, please let me know in the comments, and I'll try to cover that as well in the next video. And if you have any suggestions, please leave them down in the comments as well. I'll try and make a few videos on that. And as always, feedback is much appreciated. If you feel like I could have explained something better, or if you want me to change my way of explanation, then uh, you could drop a comment and say how you want me to change it, or if you can just give your feedback. And maybe, yeah, I'll incorporate that in the next few videos. All right. So thank you for watching this. If you're watching this till here, then hats off. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.